The following is a paid program by the Whitley Law Firm. Welcome to Attorneys on Call, the program that gives you free legal information from the Whitley Law Firm. Now, here's your host, Drew Smith.
Welcome. We are so happy that you're here today joining us for this edition of Attorneys on Call. We've got a very special show for you today, a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary, but a great show nonetheless. We are pointing the spotlight on a wonderful nonprofit in North Carolina that serves veterans, military veterans. It's called Hope for the Warriors. They're doing great work throughout our state of North Carolina, and that's why we're here today to point the focus on them. And joining us in studio is Scott Griffith with Hope for the Warriors, also a Marine veteran, 19 years as a Marine, and of course Ben Whitley from the Whitley Law Firm. Guys, it's great to be with you today. Ben, I know this is important for you, that the Whitley Law Firm wants to support our military veterans, and we have so many service members in this state. I mean, it's huge. We've got Camp Lejeune, we've got Johnson Seymour, right. Fort Bragg. It's a very, very military-heavy state.
It is. And, you know, growing up here in North Carolina, especially growing up in eastern North Carolina, the military is part of all of our lives. You know, we're, even as civilians, from driving to the beach, you used to drive by the Marine Air Station in Jacksonville.
Sure.
Havelock. Then, of course, the Marines down in Jacksonville, the Air Force in Goldsboro, and the Army down in Fayetteville. So it's a big part of our state. It's a big part of our state's economy.
Right.
And I think for businesses that are serving our community, we have to make sure that we are military friendly and, that we're supporting our military. And I just have found that the Hope for the Warriors is just doing these amazing things for veterans all over. And I really wanted to bring them on the show and to give some outreach and to let other folks know what they're doing and hopefully get some more support.
Scott, tell us a little bit about Hope for the Warriors, and I know you've got a wonderful clinic, a facility in Jacksonville. It's a partnership that Hope has, but tell us a little bit about the organization and how you're helping service members and veterans.
Absolutely. So we obviously are a veteran nonprofit that we serve all post 9/11 veterans. However, people do ask the question if a veteran was to come along as a pre 9/11 veteran, would we turn them away? And we would not turn them away. What we would do is we would find another organization or another program to help or assist that veteran as well. But we were founded in 2006 right here at Camp Lejeune. Okay. Started off with a couple of key wives who turned into, now there's like a family readying officers and things of that have developed from that program. But it was Robin Keller and Shannon Maxwell are the two co-founders. Their husbands were coming back from some war-type injuries and dealing with the things that, come along with that, and they were not really receiving the medical attention that they needed. So they kind of sat around the table and got around some other general officers and started talking about things that they could do to kind of assist veterans and service members as they were coming back from a combat environment. And lo and behold, Hope for the Warriors was founded. Okay. And since then, has served over almost 45,000 veterans.
That's wonderful.
Service members up to this point.
That's wonderful.
Well, we have within 48,000 programs.
Wow.
So we focus on physical, mental, and financial wellness.
Okay.
The main things that we like to kind of like really focus on, and through that, there's so many things when you look at the transition piece. And when I say transition, a lot of people automatically assume that when you talk about transition is like when you're leaving the military. But there's so many transition pieces when you're in the military as well.
Sure.
Like anytime you're PCSing or you're moving from one state to another state or one duty station to another duty station, or you're transitioning from a combat deployment and coming back home and trying to transition back into the family environment.
Yeah.
And then obviously there is that big transition of when the time comes of whether you decide to move on from the military at a young age or you try to make it a career. You still have to eventually face the facts that time is going to come. And even from my own personal experience, it was a very dark place. And the reason why I say that is you find yourself standing in front of a mirror and you're trying to identify who you are. Because when you're in the military, you kind of get told who you are.
Sure.
You get told you get told where you got to be, when you have to be, what you have to wear, and it's honestly a very easy lifestyle as long as you adapt.
You do what you're told.
Those things, you just do what you're told.
Show up where you need to be.
So now you find yourself looking at yourself and you're not sure who you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to be.
Interesting.
And you're not sure what you're even supposed to put on that day. So it's a big transition in learning, trying to adapt to that. And for me personally, that's where Hope for the Warriors stepped in. I was sent to Wounded Warrior Battalion East in 2016-17, and Hope for the Warriors, a really good friend of mine, worked for Hope for the Warriors and introduced me to them, and they just connected with me, and it wasn't one of those connections where someone steps in and they make an impact and then they're gone. They made an impact, and they didn't just touch me; they touched my family. And they stuck around.
They're with you for the journey.
They really have been. And
Scott, you and I were talking before about how these issues are family issues too.
Yes, sir.
It is not just the service member.
Absolutely. And again, so what we were talking about, when you look at post-traumatic stress and you start dealing with any like TB, traumatic brain injuries, which is a very common thing for the folks that have been deployed recently in most Iraq and Afghanistan deployments. It affects the family too, and sometimes I feel like that it feeds that traumatic injury and that traumatic experience into the family lifestyle, and now the whole family has to deal with that environment. Mm-hmm. So that's where Hope has stepped in and again worked with that mental wellness. Mm-hmm. And we have partnered with the Stephen Cohen Clinic there in Jacksonville, which is an outstanding facility. I think it's 5,300 square feet. They're growing. They have obviously a lot of licensed clinicians there, so they deal with the mental and behavioral type of health, and it's not something that is provided for the service member. They provide it for family members as well. So if they have a wife or a husband or a spouse, they have children, even mom, dad, aunt, uncles, anybody that's connected to them that could have been affected through their hardships, the Cohen Clinic will bring them in and actually see them and deal with their issues as well. So marriage counseling is a part of it. I mean, they do so many wonderful things. There's so many wonderful people there.
We're going to take a short break, but we're going to come right back, talk to Scott Griffith from Hope for the Warriors. Again, we're going to learn more about what Hope does and how it serves the veterans and their families throughout the state. You're watching Attorneys on Call.
I've heard from my dad about treating clients like family all of my life. It wasn't about corporations or companies, it was about people.
You got to treat your clients like you would want to be treated, kind of the golden rule.
Wholehearted care is knowing that someone's there, someone that's there for real.
They truly know we care.
The Whitley Advantage isn't just one thing.
It's everything. Our clients know how that injury has affected them. Their whole life has been altered. It will never be the same. It's all about families. So I think that gives us a perspective that's helpful in helping our clients. We're going to listen to you, we're going to talk to you, and we're going to work like heck on your case. You're going to get the Whitley Advantage.
And welcome back. We're very excited about this program today because we're talking about veterans services and the important role that the military plays throughout the state of North Carolina. In studio, Scott Griffith with us, and of course, Ben Whitley. In the final segment, we're also going to talk to Scott, or we're going to talk to Ben and another attorney from the law firm about what a veteran can do to make sure that he or she is not being taken advantage of if they need to hire an attorney. So there's a lot of important things that veterans need to look out for, and sometimes they're taken advantage of. So we're going to address that issue in our final segment today. Scott from Hope for the Warriors. Scott, tell us a little bit more about, one, how you became a veteran, how you joined the military, you became a Marine. I know you joined the Marine Corps. But then also about the specific programs that Hope does for people like you, for veterans.
Yes, sir. So I joined the Marine Corps in January of 2000. I went to Liberty University for a semester of college, and things did not go as smoothly as I thought they would. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps initially against my parents' will. Okay. But then with some persuasion through my father, I ended up enlisting and going active duty, where originally I was going to be a reservist and try to stay in school. Mm-hmm. Joined the Marine Corps in, like, say, 2000. Started off as a correction specialist, which is a brig guard, so I worked inside of the jail. was not the top pick of what I thought I was going to be getting involved with, but it's where I landed, and turned out to be a really interesting career.
Oh.
Still got to opportunity to serve as a drill instructor twice. I did a tour at Parris Island. I also did a tour at Officer Candidate School in Quantico. And then I got the opportunity to deploy with 112, 1st Battalion, 12th Marines for Task Force MP in 2008, 2009.
So I think looks can be deceiving because, Scott, you don't look like a DI or what I would envision a typical Marine drill instructor looks like.
So now you sound like the kids at school. When I used to get picked on for being the little guy, when I used to make the joke about I'm going to be a Marine, and they were like, yeah, you can't be a Marine. And, we talked about this subconsciously. I think that created like a challenge in my head of,
is that right?
I'm going to do this.
Okay.
But my wife would probably argue with you and tell you that she's seen the horns come out a few times. And my children probably could say the same thing. But a really interesting tour I absolutely loved. That was probably one of the most rewarding tours as a Marine. As a Marine is to be a drill instructor and to be able to watch, young individuals mold themselves into a United States Marine. It's absolutely very, very exhilarating to watch.
So let's talk a little bit about the programs that Hope provides for service members all across the state. I mean, you don't delineate by service, whether it's the Marine Corps, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Space Force even,
yes, sir.
Right? So what are some of those services that you provide?
So I always tell people this when they ask what kind of programs we have. If you are a service member, whether you are active duty or a veteran, there's a program in there for you. We have anything from critical care needs, so that's where we can step in. Maybe a service member is having some issues with financial reasons, maybe some financial hardships due to injuries or whatever it is that they've got with doctor bills or whatever is going on. So we can step in and help out with some financial needs to take care of a crisis situation for their family. Obviously, we've talked about the Cohen Clinic, so we provide that mental health standpoint where they can get mental health treatment and behavioral health issues for their entire family, including the service member. We also have programs for like sports and recreation and outdoor outdoor adventures. So the sports and recreation, we do we hold 30-30 virtual challenges. So it's like 30 days of 30 minutes of just being active, and you kind of like do like a self-log, and you can do it all virtually, so it doesn't matter whether you're in North Carolina or you could be anywhere throughout the country. You can still get involved and register for that, and of course it's free to register. And then for service members, it's free for them to register. And then we also do golf events. We take veterans, we've taken them fishing, we've taken them hunting. We try to get them, and that's where that outdoor adventures comes in.
About, you're creating communities for them too.
Absolutely. Right? So one thing that we were talking about is a large percentage of the thing that I do every day is just try to connect with veterans and make sure that what they even did for me when Hope did bring me through that dark time was they stay connected with me. So what we actually do within the military relations program that I fall under, we really key in on peer-to-peer veteran support.
I see.
So we hold peer-to-peer groups. We actually every Thursday night in Jacksonville we have a peer-to-peer group where veterans can come in, our service members can come in active duty as well, and it's just us. There's no clinicians, there's no notes. It's just veterans doing what we do best and just being able to explain and kind of venting ourselves because we just are able to connect in a different way. Right. You put a group of veterans in a room together, and whether they've met for the first time that day or they've been serving together for 15, 20 years, like they can just create like this bond, and it's a very important piece to kind of a survival kind of technique. Because again, when you start dealing with those darker demon days, sometimes just having that veteran to reach out and say like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Just checking in with you, it makes you realize that you're important.
And the VA is incapable of being able to do this type of outreach.
Absolutely. I mean, and the VA is definitely doing a lot better than what I feel like they used to.
Yeah.
And they're doing the best they can. But there's so many service members, and there's only a limited amount of people that can work within the VA system. So it just gets really clogged. So I think this is where Hope for the Warriors can step in, and we do step in and really get to assist those veterans as they're dealing with those everyday problems, whether it's just something at home where they're dealing with a child that's maybe getting on the nerves, or they're Yeah, whatever it
Right.
is, they can chime in.
What about this, Scott? What about someone watching the program right now, maybe as a spouse of a military veteran, and they need some help? Can they go to the website, Hope for the Warriors, or what can they do? How can you reach out to family members?
Absolutely, they can definitely go to the website. We've had quite a few spouses or significant others that have actually connected with us. I have some clients that are actually spouses to the service member themselves, because sometimes service members just don't want to associate with that. So we still step in and still are able to assist them and give them the tools that they need, try to provide them with programs or any types of services that we can, so they can definitely connect with us. We obviously do have on staff too. We have a lot of veteran spouses, and active spouses as well. So we connect them with them, and they can kind of engage and discuss things and just help each other out in the same type of community and the same type of way that a veteran can to each other. You have a service member connection. It's the same thing with that family and that spouse, the significant other, just connection.
No, that's wonderful. As Ben, as you mentioned earlier, I believe North Carolina is one of the top states in the country for the number of service members that live and reside here and work here. So it's an important part of our whole structure to this state.
It is, and as we've talked off camera, just there's just not enough resources that the government provides out there, and prayfully that Hope for Warriors has been around and needs support. And if folks are out there and they can't, they want to just call our law firm, we can give them information on how to get in touch.
Okay, that's great.
And provide all the resources so that they can do whatever intake process that they need. Just again, wanting to make sure people know that this is out there, this is available, and there's resources beyond the VA for veterans out there that need some help, and for their families as well.
Scott, I think we're at a point in time right now where we're not actively involved in combat theaters in Afghanistan or Iraq, but I would think that the scars from that last a long time, don't they?
Absolutely, and a lot of them are still surfacing today.
Is that right?
I think and you even go back to the Vietnam guys.
Oh, sure.
Those individuals that experienced that type of very, very intensive treatment that they received when they got home. It wasn't the same type of treatment that I got when I got back.
Right.
I was welcomed back and was applauded and made to feel like I was some sort of hero that I'm not. But you go back to Vietnam, those guys did not receive that same type of care.
Sure.
So I think you put all that into place. Again, that's where something like what Hope for the Warriors does is it just allows them to feel again that they're appreciated.
You've been through this. You work for this organization, but you're a Marine. You've been through this. What do you tell people that are watching the program right now that they might be a service member, a spouse, a child, and there's some issues going on at home? What should they do?
Stay resilient. Resiliency is something that's very key in the military culture, and you have to try to remain that resiliency. But at the same time, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
And I think that's a very important thing that, in the military culture, we get told to kind of suck things up. You deal with that later, because today we've got this issue, we've got this problem, so we're dealing with that. And I think it kind of teaches you to kind of like shelter yourself away from, trying to get self-care. So just don't be afraid to ask for that help. And whether you're a spouse or whether you're a child, and maybe it's your mom or dad that serves, don't be afraid to make that phone call or reach out or talk to your parents or talk to that service member and say, like, hey, there's help out there for you, and there's people that are willing to assist us to get through this.
Once again, thank you, Scott, so much. Once again, you can call the Whitley Law Firm and they will direct you to Hope for the Warriors, or you can go to the website hopeforthewarriors.org, hopeforthewarriors.org. Talena Poe, one of the attorneys with the Whitley Law Firm, is going to be joining us for our last segment. Stay with us. You're watching Attorneys on Call. And welcome back to Attorneys on Call. The Whitley Law Firm represents service members and military families in the state of North Carolina because the military is such a big part of our state. Talena Poe is one of the attorneys with the Whitley Law Firm. Welcome. Glad to see you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Talena, you do a lot of work with military veterans and families and service members. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're doing for the firm.
So one of my main roles at the firm is I'm one of the attorneys that's working on the Camp Lejeune water contamination lawsuits that I'm sure everyone's familiar with that's going on right now. And so one of the big things that I do is I work person to person with these individuals who are bringing these claims against the government. And I try to counsel them from an attorney's perspective, and I try and help them with accessing records to prove their time at Camp Lejeune or their medical records. And I also work with them quite a bit to just kind of explain the process, because it's a very complex and a very confusing process. And, you know, working with some of these veterans, a lot of these guys, I love them to death, but they're the old Vietnam guys that Scott was mentioning earlier, that era. It's a lot of these old Vietnam guys, and, you know, they have the most amazing stories.
I bet.
Of anyone I've ever met in my life, and I really love taking the time to sit down and speak with them. And even though we're, you know, dealing with terrible things like cancers and Parkinson's disease, you know, they still have these stories, and they've got so much fire and energy in them. It makes it worth it to come to work every single day.
You know, when I see your smile, what it tells me is you love your job. You love what you do.
So much. I'm blessed, and I'm grateful, and I'm thankful beyond all belief. And it's, you know, there are very few attorneys who I feel like can genuinely say that. But the clients that I work with, I feel rewarded at the end of every day.
What do you find is the most troubling part of this whole toxic water case at Camp Lejeune? What's the most troubling to understand? And for people that may not understand the whole story, this dates back a while.
So it dates back to the early 1950s through the 1980s. So you've got over a 35-year period where the wells at Camp Lejeune, U.S. Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, were contaminated with four main types of toxic chemicals.
Okay.
And some of those people who were infected and drank the water, they bathed in the water, they, you know, washed their cars in the water for years, they're still getting cancer today, and they're still getting sick today. And I mean, that kind of ties in with your earlier question of what the most troubling part is. And the most troubling part is that for 30 years, people were aware that they were poisoning Marines. They were poisoning their family members. They were poisoning teachers. They were poisoning maintenance workers. And they failed to take the proper steps to correct those actions and to correct what had been done.
You know, Ben, we see a lot of commercials from law firms out there advertising to help veterans that may have been exposed to this toxic water. You guys are right here, though.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit about because of what happened during the Camp Lejeune advertising, that what we saw, but also, you know, veterans are targeted for advertising, not just for the Camp Lejeune, but then other, what we think of mass torts, like the 3M earplugs. And all sorts of legal services are being pushed to veterans, and especially we learned about it through Camp Lejeune. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I just hate and would not want anyone to get taken advantage of. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that if a vet is looking for a law firm, whether it is for Camp Lejeune or a 3M earplug or a car accident or Social Security, there are some things that they can do to protect themselves.
Okay.
And the first one is to make sure, number one, that it is a law firm based in the state of North Carolina. That's easy to find because the name in any kind of website will be listed there. And if the veteran is unsure, they can always go to the state bar website to see if the attorney is registered in the state. What we found during the advertisements is lots of out-of-state law firms, or even there weren't even law firms; they were lead brokers, were coming lead generators that were coming into the state. Some of them would hire actors that either looked like veterans or looked like an official government representative. I even saw one that had a seal on it. So
interesting.
It's designed to confuse our service members in North Carolina. So I just want to put this out there. Find out if who you're talking to is based in the state, and if before you hire a law firm, ask to speak to an attorney. because that will cut out a lot of the people you don't want to deal with. Because if it's a lead generator or if it's a mega firm, they're not going to have a way for you to talk to an attorney.
And that call's free.
Yeah, and that what call us is free.
To call you, it's always free.
Yes, but with other places, what I'm saying is that be careful if you're out there on how to prevent being taken advantage of.
Right.
If you're looking at a firm, ask to speak to an attorney, and if they can't provide an attorney to speak to you, that is a red flag.
Can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Talena, please do.
Yeah.
Go with your gut. That's what I tell everyone that calls in and they want to speak to an attorney. They're not sure about hiring an attorney. Go with your gut. If you feel on the inside that something's wrong, something's off, you're not sure if these are the people who you want to take care of you and see you through a multi-year long process, listen to that voice inside of you and trust who you are as a person to know when something doesn't feel right.
Right.
What is it like to be that counsel for a person that has been seriously injured through toxic water that we're talking about here? To be able to counsel that person and walk them through that, as you said, it's a very complicated process.
It's got its good days and it's got its bad days.
Sure.
Because there are some who they have multiple types of cancer and unfortunately it's going to take their life.
That's awful.
I've been fortunate and blessed enough to meet with some of these people in person. I've went to some of their houses. I've prayed with them. And although that's rewarding and I love it, it's also absolutely heartbreaking sometimes. But again, they deserve everything that we can possibly give them. And so it kind of motivates me to do as best I can. I walk into Ben's office probably 5 times a day saying, I've got a new idea. What if we do this?
Right.
Well, we got about 20 seconds, Ben, for you to just kind of
Right.
put a bow on this.
Well, if you've got an issue out there and you just need some help, it's a free call to call us. We can direct you. If it's not a case that we handle, if it's something that we will find referral partners for you. We will get you to Hope for the Warriors. We will get you the help you need, and it's a free call to get there.
Free call, WhitleyLawFirm.com, a great first step.
Yes.
Thank you both so much for being here today. We have learned, I think our viewers have learned a lot today about what you do and about the veteran community in our state of North Carolina. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Attorneys on Call.